Shoot, I started every class not knowing what day we're on. Well, I know what day we're on. So week 10, day 4. We're chugging right along. We're spending time in Django. We're at the end of our first week in Django. We've learned hopefully how to start a project in Django, and create a model, which is equivalent to a table in our database in Postgres. And then I guess Thursday, I think it was, y'all started looking at validators as well to, help with data integrity with our models. Um, the database will have its own separate uh, you can set up your own separate, I guess, validations and integrity checks in the database itself in Postgres. But we also, it's helpful to do it at the backend level within Django as well. Usually you'll have validations on front end, back end, and database, all 3 layers to make sure that nothing gets in there that you don't want in there. So now today we are starting associations, Django associations, which when I say that, I mean the relationships between our database tables and the models. So when we worked in SQL in the past, we set up a schema, right? And our schema usually had multiple relationships between the tables. We had many to many, we had one to many. We can even do one to one, even though that's not used as commonly. It's more for usually sensitive information, that sort of thing. But we are now taking those one to many relationships, men to many relationships into Django and showing you how to hook up your models to have those relationships. So we're building upon the previous days. It says this application as of yesterday's branch. You cannot fork a branch. I mean, I think it's possible, but it's not easy. There's a lot of manipulation you have to do to get it. But hopefully, if you were following along, everything looks like how we have it set up at the end of Thursday's class. If not, just, go into this and just copy and paste stuff, honestly. I go to the models and just grab all this and throw it in your model. Just make sure you're at where we left off on Thursday, and we will pick up there and learn how to make an associated model. Okay, so I've already forked it down.
Which page did you fork again? I'm sorry. I was trying to look for it for the link. But
Yeah.
was it like a page that we worked on already?
So on our schedule, when I've linked to this README today, it has the starter code, the application as of yesterday's lesson. So it should, you can get to every branch within this Django Pokemon example. And we're starting at the end of day 3 branch.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you'll be able to fork it, but when you open it up in VS Code from the fork, you will see you are on the main branch. So yours will say main down here instead of end of day 3. But you can also just, fill in what's missing. There shouldn't be much. I mean, there's just the validators page that y'all did on Thursday, and then you added those validations to the model. I think there's a few more tests. Yeah, there was a testing the validation with the tests. So I think the only ones you need to make sure are updated are models, tests, and validators. Okay. So we are starting from there. We're going to sort of be following the README verbatim, but I will be making a couple of little changes along the way. So this application that we've started, this Django application, is using a Docker Compose. Did y'all look into this when you first started working in this Django Pokemon example?
Yeah.
Hopefully. Okay, good. So right now our Docker Compose looks pretty much just like I mean, it's running from an image. There's no other Docker files in here. Eventually, when we start actually using the compose feature, which allows you to have multiple Docker images working together, then this will change a bit and we will have Docker files throughout our application. But for now, we're just using our Postgres image for our database. So we don't have to worry about any local issues with, like user login and stuff and permissions. So we're just using our Postgres. This should just run well with Docker Compose up D. When you're done, make sure to run this V because what does that stand for?
Volumes.
Volumes, yes. So we've got this set up to have a volume, which what is a volume?
Persistent data storage.
Exactly, persistent data storage. So it's helpful when you're working on your projects to have the volume so you don't lose data between spinning up your containers and then, shut them back down because you're not going to let your container run all night long on your computer. You're probably going to stop it and go do other stuff. So that volume allows that data to persist. When we're doing a lot of practicing and changing our models, though, we sometimes want to just destroy that volume because it can be more trouble than it's worth keeping that data if you are actively developing your models still, because there could be some issues when you add fields, which we will actually run into later today on purpose. But so this should just run with Docker Compose upd. So let's get that running so we have our database up and running here as we're getting ready to work on adding a new model to this. Okay, so it will do all of its pulling and starting for this image. Yes, this is end of day 3. Okay, looks like it's created and started. Let's make sure that everything's running. So let's take a look at Docker PS, which shows us our running containers at this point. So we can see that we do have our Postgres image running and it is still up. It's up a few seconds ago. And here's our port mapping as well. So it's listening locally on 5454, but within the container, it's 5432 because that is Postgres default port, right? Okay. So now that we have our database up and running, it is open to taking this model that we've written in Django. Now, if you didn't do Docker Compose down -v, then this model probably still exists within your database. However, if you did the -v and it destroyed everything when you brought that container down, then what do we need to do to make sure that this model that we've defined, this database table, exists in our Postgres database? Does anybody remember how I...
Is it the migrate and make migration?
Exactly,
I
yes.
don't remember which order.
Yeah, we can see here under migrations as well that I have nothing. So it looks like I haven't run this before. That doesn't mean there's nothing in the database. I may have, some things hanging around, but it never hurts to try to make migrations and migrate. That way you can be sure that your model that you've written within Django here exists in your database. Okay, so let's go ahead and, well, before I do anything in Django, what is probably the #1 thing I need to do and make sure that I'm in before I start working in my Django?
Virtual environment.
Yes, exactly. My virtual environment. You will find out real fast you're not in that if you start working without spinning that up, because up until now, you most likely have been working within that, and that is going to be where all of your pip installs have been going, your dependencies for Django. So if you try to run your Django project without being in your virtual environment, you're going to get a lot of like, I don't know what Django is, because hopefully you don't have that installed to your overall machine. You have that just installed in this little virtual environment here for this project itself. So let's go ahead and make sure we're, oh, not S, LS, make sure we're at the same level that our virtual environment is, and then we can say source rev bin activate. And that's literally just saying go into bin and run this activate. So that's if you were curious about where that came from. No such source bin. Am I doing it the wrong? Help me out if I'm doing the wrong way. There we go. Okay. When I work in .NET, a lot of times the like slashes have to go the other way and stuff. So annoying. And then you have to escape stuff too as well. .NET's another framework for full stack application development. And that uses mostly C# as the backend programming language. So I work in C#, not Python most of the time. I will write some Python scripts though, because Python is amazing for scripting. iOS, I don't know. I do not work in that. But yeah, so .NET is just another framework. So I got hired on to work in there, and I knew nothing of that code base. I have the only thing that has translated from my time in Code Platoon has been JavaScript and then Python for the scripting. But they make us use PowerShell more, which is gross, but I have to. And then React. I do use React. React is definitely a more modern front end framework. So a lot of old code bases have been wanting to change to use a React front end versus. So we don't teach you this, but Django actually has a front end built in. I wish we still taught you all this. It's called the model view controller. Brian knows. There's a model view controller setup where we don't, it's, the model is like we're learning now. The view is actually the front end, what the user sees, and then the controller is going to be the logic behind the scenes to do all the I guess the back end thinking for you. So Django actually has a lot of old code bases have the view still on. It's called templates. We're not going to show you the templates in Django, but a lot of code bases you go work on will have some sort of template or view that in turn they will want you to change into a either an API to serve up data, or they'll want you to use React to write that front end. So a lot of MVC stacks are moving towards APIs or, using other sources for the front end. Just FYI, a little, but we don't teach that. I don't know why. I'm advocating to put that back in the curriculum because a lot of deprecated code bases will still have that, and you will be like, what the heck is going on here? Okay, so back in this, we're in our virtual environment. Now all of our dependencies should be accessible to us because we are installing them here into this library. Okay, so we were going to make migrations and migrate, right? Couldn't do that outside of the virtual environment because we'd be calling this manage.py, which has a lot of, it has Python stuff, or not Python, Django stuff in it. Yeah, see, it says from Django Core Management. So if we tried running that outside our virtual environment, it would argue that there's no such thing as Django, so I can't run that. But we are going to make migrations to check to see if we have anything that needs to go in the database. And we do, we can see that this container that I've kicked up and started running for our Postgres does not have this Pokemon app in it. And we haven't made any migrations in this app yet to put in the database. So we can see that here because it says, all right, we need to create this modeled Pokemon. So this is telling me all the changes that are ready to migrate into our database. So now that we're ready to migrate, we're going to do our Python manage.py migrate. And this is where it actually applies all that within our Postgres database. You can see a lot of stuff is put in there. It did more than just Pokemon, right? It told us we have this model, this Pokemon model that it needs to go in, but because this is our first time migrating things to our Postgres database, it also adds a bunch of stuff that is built into Django, like admin and auth. These are database tables that are inherent to Django, and we will be using in future weeks. We will be learning all the built-in authentication within Django, but it just automatically sets those up for you as part of this framework. So pretty awesome. But this is the one we did by creating that Pokemon model, this Pokemon app. Oh man, I should probably get out of Steam. I forgot I didn't want to have my taskbar here. Okay. So we have made migrations. We've migrated. Our Postgres database should have this Pokemon model in there now. So let's go ahead and make another model add on to this. We are going to be adding moves for our Pokemon. And the README wants you to create a separate move app and model to help try to keep to the single responsibility principle with our applications. The way we have done this today with setting up our project, we can do this without many issues. It's the same process that you did to make the Pokemon app. You can have multiple apps in here, which will all have their own model and their own tests, validators, views. So we can do that. And there would be no problem in doing that today the way we've set this up. However, when we're making table associations, what was one of the most important things that we had to do in SQL when creating those database tables, if they had a relationship?
Doing the foreign key.
Doing a foreign key, and then with that foreign key, we had to make sure that that table was established first, right? When we're creating all these database tables, we needed to make sure that that one we were relating was created before we tried to do a reference to it, right? So we are making a move table that will hold information for a move that we are going to associate to. We're going to assign a Pokemon moves. How do I want to say this? The way we're establishing it makes sure that our tables are created in a way that the relationship will not have issues. Like the SQL tables behind the scenes will be able to do their relationships to each other without issue. But if we were to write all this from scratch and not make migrations, if I didn't migrate this Pokemon table and I had a separate app that had the move app was separate and related to Pokemon, there is a chance that when you make migrations and migrate, you get some complaints in the terminal about conflicting, like can't relate to this model because it doesn't exist. So there's like that hierarchy sometimes gets a little messed up if you create it in a separate app because it's going to run those kind of at the same time. Does that make sense? Like it's going to try to create those tables at the same time because they're in separate files. So you can absolutely start another app and it will work. Oh man, my other screen. Okay, it will work right now, but when you go to your challenge today, if you try to do everything all at once and then make migrations and migrate at the same time, you're going to get an error thrown at you. So in order to alleviate that and just try to teach, we're just going to learn the concept today. You can play with making separate apps if you want, but we're just going to throw our models all in here, like we do in our init.sql. We're going to have everything in here, and we're going to put it in here in a way that when it creates these, it will create the table we need first that's related to another table. Because then when it makes migrations, it will run through this file from top to bottom. So it will create the first model first and then the next model next. So it will work in a way that the relationship will not yell at you. Everything will exist. Just a nice little tidbit of helpful knowledge there. There is ways to do it with the separate apps, but I would just like to have you all understand the concept first before we start going into that. So I'm going to make a move model in the same file, in the same app. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, it would be nicer to kind of keep things separate, but you could argue that moves are part of Pokemon anyways. So let's just keep it all in Pokemon to make it nice and simple. So I'm going to make a move model now, and I'm not going to create a new app. If you want to create a new app, you can follow along with the README to do that later. It is just step by step, tells you how to do that. Pretty easy. Okay, so we're going to make a move model, and I'm just copying from the README to save time, and it has some methods underneath it. We're just going to throw it down here. So with these, you just, they're different classes. So you can throw it down below the previous model that you made. When we make a model, we say class, the name of the model, and then we have to inherit from this model's DOM model. That's how you will set all of them up. Okay, so just get used to the syntax, copy, paste, whatever, and change out. These are all the fields that this model has. So we have a name, which is a character field, some validators on there. We could see we have a validator that we're importing that we haven't made yet because we haven't gotten that far in the README, but it looks like we are going to have a custom validate move name validator, which we will add within our validators file. This has accuracy, max PP, whatever, all these different fields within this move model. Then here are our methods for this model. We have a string method, models.py. This should exist just by doing a start app within Django. This is built in, this models file is built in as part of something that pops up when you create a new app within Django. Or are you saying where did this move model get copied from?
Well, because I pulled it and I cloned it, and so when I look at it, there's on the models PY under the oh, I guess I'm looking under the wrong one. Maybe I'm looking under
So I think if we go back to, let me pull up the application and go to the main branch.
oh, okay.
yours is probably looking like this, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly. So I copied down the wrong branch. That's probably what I did wrong.
Yeah, well, that's part of the what I was telling you where you can't fork a branch. You can fork main, but to get the
Um,
branches, you have to do a code, and I don't think y'all have access to code this.
okay,
Um,
so then we just copy the whatever branch the day.
yeah, so just go to end of day 3, and then you can come in here and just this is the easiest way, just highlight all that, copy.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, all right, appreciate it. Thank
Um, Okay, so that was the Pokemon model, and then now in today's class, I've just added this move model. Let's go ahead and add our validators so that we stop having that little squiggly there. We have a new one called validate move name, which I'm just going to place in this validators file. Oh, and we can make migrations and migrate, not yet. So here is the new custom validation that is specific to the move model. It looks like it's just taking in some regex, which I guess we didn't teach y'all yet, maybe. Do we have resources on regex that we gave y'all? If not, I will find some links and also give you the readme from our evening and weekend curriculum that goes into this. It's helpful. There's also websites where you can say exactly what you want to do and it will just spit out the regex for you. But this is like pattern matching. It's useful for pattern matching. So we're trying to match, looks like it has to be within the alphabet. I am not good at reading regex. I would have to look into this. I guess it's just alphabetical. But yeah, so there is our new validator, custom validator, which when we come over here, I added it, but it's still yelling at me that it's not defined. What do I need to do? What should I look at first?
Your validators.py file.
So I added it in here. It exists here.
You
Validate
gotta
move.
add it to the models from dot validators, import, validate, move name.
Exactly. Exactly. So first thing I did when I put this in is compare names. That's always a good thing. Make sure you have the same name as the function you're trying to call, because sometimes our readmes conflict in that sense, which we're trying to fix. But it's also helpful learning little troubleshooting moment there. But yes, we need to make sure it is imported because these are importing by function calls or function names. So we can just throw that in up here, just comma, and add another thing we are importing in, right? Just like every other Python file we've touched and learned. Okay, so now that we've brought that in, it should now be good to go. Yes, it recognizes that. Okay, cool. So anytime we touch a model's fields or add a new model, we have to migrate into the database. This move model is not a part of our database yet because we have not migrated. So anytime a new model gets added or the fields within the model are edited or we add more to it, we need to make migrations. Do I have to migrate? Oh, we see another little issue here. Validation error is not defined. What does that mean?
It's the same thing. You haven't imported the validation library.
Yep, exactly. So this just means I haven't imported something that I need in layman's terms, but yes, I haven't imported this validation error method from some sort of validator library. So in the README, we can see that it comes from Django core exceptions, import validation error. We have Django core up there. We could probably add it on there, but I'm just gonna add a new line from Django core exceptions. Now we're going to import validation error. Okay, So now that we've imported that, that's good as well. All right, so we have to make migrations and migrate. If I change a method underneath our model, do I have to migrate then? No, I see somebody shaking head. No, that is correct. No. If you mess with these methods underneath the model, doesn't matter to the database, right? The database does not know Python. It is not going to be doing these for us. The database only cares about our tables within the database. So our tables and the fields within that. Anything else, all these methods underneath are strictly for our Python backend here. Doesn't matter for the database, doesn't need to be migrated. But we did add a whole new model. We added this move model. And again, if they rush through it in the previous classes, you inherit from models.model. Each field will be models dot whatever you want that field to be. So we have character fields, we have positive integer fields and integer fields. We have email fields. We have all sorts of fields, which you can look in Django documentation to find out more about. Love Django documentation. It's actually very nice. So if you come on main Django documentation, you come down to models, which is what we're working in. We have field types. There is a whole bunch of field types here on the side that you can see that you can look into and use in your models. So kind of cool little tidbit there. Let's go ahead and make migrations and migrate. So when we run make migrations, it saw that we do have a new model move that needs to be added to our database. So good. So it picked it up. That's perfect. Let's go ahead and migrate it. And it migrated it just fine. Said, okay. Now we can see, since we've already done that initial that added all these extra built-in ones with Django, the only thing it added to the database this time was that move model.
So is it only a model if model is in the argument? Is that the only thing that distinguishes a model from any other function?
So our model is a class and the functions are class methods. I guess I'm not understanding.
Okay.
Oh, did that help?
Yeah, I mean, because I was wondering, like, how does the interpreter know it's a model and not anything else?
Yes, so it knows it's a model, number one, based on where we place it in this models.py file. It's set up to know that this is where we are doing models. The same way, like when we have a validators, it knows that anything placed in here is going to be a validator, and tests, et cetera, et cetera. So first, by the name of the file we're placing it in is how it knows it's going to be a model. And then secondly, we're inheriting from the built-in model within Django.
Okay.
So that sets it up also to let the interpreter know that this is going to be a model versus just a class of like an object, a class object we're going to use.
So if you had another class in there, but you didn't inherit models, then it'll just ignore that for the table?
It should, but you would not write another class in here that is not a model. Don't do that.
I was just curious. I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
wondering. Like,
Yeah, 100%. So it shouldn't, it would probably throw a lot of errors if you had another class in here that did not inherit from a model. Potentially. Of course, we're just teaching you one way to do this. There's probably a lot of different ways to make a model without inheriting from the base model, perhaps. I'm not sure. That's what, let's see, where is it? Django documentation can help with too, because they have introduction of models. It's a subclass of this. So I guess if you didn't have this, it wouldn't be able to pick it up.
yeah, because I guess you couldn't write any code that you could access the model class with.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you have to inherit it first. So yeah, you won't be able to use anything in models.
Yeah, so the methods that they're using to make the database tables in this ORM, like between the two,
Mhm.
it's the methods are being called from that model. I'm sure it's being called from this model class. So if you don't inherit this, we learned in OOP, if we don't inherit from a parent, you can't access those methods with that model. So any methods that are with this, if you don't inherit from, you won't access. So I'm sure the behind the scenes code that's making this migration is a method within this class,
Okay.
if that makes sense. But that's a
Can
good
you,
question.
I mean, this is a little bit advanced, but I'm kind of curious. Is that is the models class static? So like you could just write write a line without putting it in a class, like because you suggested that maybe you can use without the class, but maybe if it's a static class, then
I
you
thought you
can use.
might be able to, but I don't think you can based on the documentation.
Okay.
Um, because
I don't
they're
want to
very,
confuse anybody, but I'm just curious myself.
yeah, no, it's good to question why we're doing this. And there are different things we will teach you that you can do differently, like CRUD operations when we get into that. We're going to show you one way, but Django has an easier way as well that we don't teach you, but it's a little more advanced. So I was theorizing that there might be a little more advanced way to do the models, because like I said, I don't work in Django. But looking at their documentation, it doesn't look like it. It's very
Yeah.
explicit about having to inherit from that base model.
Okay.
And then if you are super curious about it, um, you can click like what I did. Anything that's within Django here, you can do that control click to bring you
Mhm.
to either that model or that function or method. So it brought me here to the class model. So this is
Mhm.
what we inherit from. So you can see all of the class attributes. It looks like something that happens with a pre-init, I guess, before we initialize, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
Yeah, a whole bunch of information behind the scenes of what this does. And then we can see class methods with it. We can see the string method. We can see all these other dunder methods built in. So yeah, good way to dig behind the scenes if you have deeper questions.
Okay.
Um, Anytime I don't know something in a code base I'm working in, I look into the code behind the scenes, especially when troubleshooting. If you don't know first thing about the application you're working in, um, you can look at the code and read it to get an idea of how you can troubleshoot it. So, but as we can see, this is built in to that, let's see, into the Django library that we pip installed. Pip install Django.
Mhm.
It's one of the in the database, like it's one of the files within the library itself that manages this. So definitely more advanced than anybody needs to go right now. But if
Oh
you
yeah,
have
yeah.
the desire to learn that behind the scenes, most people don't question what the ORMs are doing, but it's nice to also look into that, help you get a better understanding for sure.
And you work with .NET at work?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. .NET, C Sharp. We have a couple Java applications, but I don't work in those as much.
And you said it was deprecated? Because you said model view controller is deprecated, and I think .NET is model view controller based.
Yeah, so well, .NET also has an API, or like, yeah, a REST framework as well. A
Mm,
lot of places are moving to try to use REST frameworks instead of like a RESTful API instead of a model view controller.
mm,
Um, However, I'm not going to speak for all places. I'm sure there's plenty still rocking the model view controller as well. Um, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, React is a little fancier, so then nicer front end. And then we have a couple of others. Oh, I can't think off the top of my head, but yep. Okay, let's get moving on with lecture. We can chat about all this later. Okay, so we're squared away with where we need to get the files to copy over the validators and all that. Okay, good, good. So now that we've made our migrations, how do we know that our models are set up correctly and work correctly? Do we just trust?
Are you asking about testing?
Yep, yep. I want to. We should be testing, right? We have this whole test file here. It's very important to write tests. They're really annoying and tedious, but there's no other way to tell this actually works unless if we test it. We can test it like using it in a lower environment, but it's much faster and much more reliable to write test cases to throw at your models to make sure that they work. So we already have test cases for our Pokemon model. Now let's add test cases for our move model. So let me copy in the README here. I am just going to throw them right underneath. I'm not going to make a new class because of the way that the unit tests work in Django here and how it targets these by running that manage.py test. So I'm just going to throw them all underneath this one class here. But I am going to rename them not to be 1 and 2. We're going to start where we left off and do 3 and 4. And now we can see squiggly lines, which means we have something not imported that we need, right? So it looks like we just need to bring in this move model now. We are already bringing in the Pokemon model. Let's go ahead and bring in move as well. Okay, so now everything looks good. Nothing is yellow squiggly. Let's go ahead and run these tests and see if they pass against our new models. So let's Python manage UI test. Okay, so running test. Again, it's smart, it's built in. Django knows when you run that, it means go look for the test file within each app that you're working in. If you have another app created and it also has a test file, it will find that one as well. It runs all test files within each of these apps. So it finds this test file, runs it, said there were 4 tests. What do these dots mean?
Passed.
Yep, passed. These are all passed. If they didn't pass, it would have something else there, right? Like E, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's E.
E or F.
Yeah. Yep, so all dots is good. Then we have this little break line here. It says it ran all those 4 tests in that time frame, which is not meaning anything to y'all now, but it will. When you're working on your job, you can create stress tests and then let's see how long it takes to run them to gauge the impact it will have on the server you place it on. And then you can decide if you're going to place, like if it's worthwhile to place it on the same server or maybe use a new resource that or request expansion in RAM and memory, or which same thing. But CPU or RAM is what I meant. So this becomes more important as you progress in your career, seeing how long your tests take to run. Right now, it doesn't matter. We're running really easy, really fast tests. And then we get an okay, and then it destroys that little test database. Okay. If anybody had issues with this and had some weird errors thrown, if you've been following along, there's a good chance you didn't do a Docker compose down -v. And you may have a database existing out there that's conflicting with this. That's just what I found from earlier. I had, when I was running through the lecture, I had something hanging out that was interfering with running the tests.
Are these tests PyTest?
They're not, I don't think they're PyTest.
Because PyTest, I think it's got like a different output instead of the dots.
Yeah,
That's why I was wondering.
this is Django specific, I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So it's Django's own built-in testing.
Huh. I didn't know they had a
It,
built-in test because when I was using it at work one time, I was they gave me a task to implement PyTest into Django, and I never saw like I think I did, but it was kind of, I don't know. People said it was kind of weird. I don't know. So I didn't know Django actually had their own built-in test.
Let's see, unit tests. Django comes with a test suite of its own
Oh,
in the test directory of the code base. It's our policy to make sure all tests pass at all times. Yep, nice. So yes, this is Django's built-in test base or test suite. And like I said, it's built to understand that anything within a test.py file I don't even think it has to be within the application, like the app. I think it just has to be, that's the logical place to put it. I probably wouldn't have a test file just sitting at the same level at the base directory, but that it's designed to look for anything that says tests.py and run those tests. So you can write within this app, you can have multiple apps and write them in each of the apps, or I guess you can. I think we have had one at the root that has all tests for all apps within a root tests.py as well.
interesting. And you still have to start all of the functions with the word test.
I believe so. Let's look at documentation when we don't know. Running tests. Okay, so running test, does it? Oh, writing and running tests. Okay, writing tests.
Hmm.
So it does use unit test, which is a Python standard library, but it does other stuff with it.
Hmm.
Test case. And it looks like this one does start with test. I'm sure somewhere in the documentation it tells you to start everything with test.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, I think that's why I thought it was PyTest. That's why, because I just glanced at it the when I did the homework, and uh I saw test in front and I just assumed it was PyTest, but I guess it's not.
yeah, oh, they all look similar. They're all kind of is PyTest using unit test as a library in it too as well?
No, I think it's his own library.
Okay. Yeah,
I think so.
I'd have to look. But yep, so good questions there and good use of documentation. I love Django's documentation. It's so easy to find things and follow along with the code snippets. So if y'all have a question on anything in Django, you can just search like I did and click around and find something useful most of the time. But okay, let's keep moving. So we've got this test that passed with all of our validators that we created for it, which was just one. So our model is good to go. However, we want to create this relationship, right? We're going to have moves, and these moves, a Pokemon can have lots of different moves, right? And a move can belong to lots of different Pokemon. Like fire Pokemon will all have the Ember move, but then Charizard itself will have multiple different moves underneath him. So what kind of relationship am I going to make between Pokemon and move?
Many to one.
A many to one? Okay. Can you explain why you think it's a one to many relationship between the two?
Pokemon can have many moves, but a move can only exist once,
Okay.
unless it's many to many.
Yeah, so when you spoke that out there, that was my question I had is, okay, so if a move can only belong to one Pokemon, that kind of locks it down, right? So if that move, like let's say psychic, which we have in the README, which is a dumb move that we're going to give Charizard. I don't know if he can learn psychic because I'm a nerd, but if we assign psychic to Charizard, if it's a one-to-many, Charizard can keep getting different moves because that's the many side, right? But that psychic, as soon as we assign it to Charizard, it's locked up. Can't be used anywhere else in a one-to-many. So we do want it to be used by other Pokemon, and you were getting to that in your thought process. I heard it when you said actually if it's a many-to-many. So we are looking at a many-to-many relationship here. I will show you all a one-to-many as well. The README does not go into that, but I'm going to show you it because you need to know that as well. But we'll start with our many-to-many between our moves and our Pokemon. So how we write a many-to-many relationship is highly dependent on how Django expects you to write that field using its own language. But let's just start and make a field underneath Pokemon that's going to hold these moves, okay? So I'm going to add a moves field to Pokemon. And it's going to, everything is models. It's inheriting from models. It's a method of models to create these fields. And we can see it starts trying to suggest some fields for us, right? We've used character field, integer field, model field, date field, whatever. This is going to be a different type of field. This is going to be a relationship field now because we're going to put an integer in here, right? It's going to be an ID, a foreign key. Well, so the many-to-many is going to have that intermediary table. We'll go into how Django handles that in a second here, but it makes it easy for us. We don't have to worry about the go-between tables for our many-to-many relationship in Django. We just have to use a many-to-many field. And let me show you in the documentation real quick where that is. So we go to field types. So it has all the different field types we can have, and then underneath that it has relationship fields. So we're going to establish these relationships, these foreign key and like relationships between our tables using these relationship fields. And we can see there's foreign key, there's many-to-many field, and there's one-to-one field. So those are the three different relationship fields that you can have between your tables. And the documentation does a great job with code snippets for them. So we are going to say moves is going to be a many-to-many relationship. And then we have to point to the model that you have a relationship with. So the moves come from the move model, right? So we're going to say that moves are a many-to-many relationship between Pokemon and move. But now we have this little squiggly. And this is kind of where our table creation is coming into play within our file here. And what sometimes messes up when you have a separate application. So this is saying move is not defined. And that's because move is defined underneath Pokemon. So let's just grab this whole thing and move it up above Pokemon. Because we need move to exist before we relate to it in the Pokemon model. Okay, so now I have move as the model established first. And then in my Pokemon model, now when I try to make a many-to-many relationship to it, it is able to see it as defined now. So thinking back to SQL, when we made a many-to-many, we had one table, the other table, and then we had a little intermediary table that held the foreign keys from both the other ones, right? That's how it made the many-to-many relationship. We don't have to do that in Django. It does that for us behind the scenes. We literally just need to add this field to one of the models, not both, one of them, only one of them, and then say it's a many-to-many field. Now you're probably like, well, okay, so with this, we can do Pokemon.moves and get all the moves we're about to assign to Pokemon, right? But how can we, since move doesn't have a Pokemon field, but move will have lots of Pokemon assigned to it, right? Because that's the idea of a many-to-many. How can I see what Pokemon have this move? So we will look into that. It's not as clean cut as using an intermediary table. We just have to learn this is how you do that. But let's go through that with some examples here real quick. So we now have a many-to-many relationship to move. Let's establish a, well, okay, I changed the model, right? So what do I have to do?
Migrations.
Migrations. Yep. We're gonna just harp on that every single time. Ooh, let's add, okay, I forgot the README has this too. Has you add a clean method onto the Pokemon model. So what these clean methods, has anybody gone into what these are and what they do on our models?
Not really.
Okay, well, I'm going to, because it's probably pretty weird and obscure. We never call, at least that we do in the terminal here in the shell, we don't really call this method. Built-in Django assertions. Oh gosh, the squirrel jumped on the window. Sorry. It is literally like right there. Okay. So yes, kind of built-in Django assertion. The clean method, if we hover over, it okay, so it runs with it doesn't really say much here. This is not very useful. Clean runs all the validations you have set up for a model. Okay, I should not say clean does, but full clean does. When we wrote our tests, we can see that after we establish a new instance of this model, we do a full clean. Yes, validators, yes. So full clean runs all the validations that we have written for this model. And it includes, so it'll run all these here. These don't actually just automatically run when you add things to the model, the way we're doing it now. It will when we set up how to write our Django REST framework endpoints. But at this moment, when we're writing stuff in the shell, these validations are not running when we're adding things into our model, because you need to run a full clean against what you've created to see if all the validations pass. So that's where full clean and clean come into play. Clean will automatically be picked up by full clean as like an extra custom validation that you've written underneath the model. So these are extra validations that automatically run whenever a full clean is run against your attempt to create data to place into the model, into the database. Okay, so you will definitely see this more when we get into Django REST framework and we actually start programmatically inserting into the database instead of using the shell down here. Okay, so let's make migrations real quick so we can start playing with the data and seeing how this relationship works here. When we make migrations, we can say, okay, cool, it looks like you added a field. You added moves to Pokemon. Exactly. That is 100% what I did. Let's migrate. Okay, worked. So now let's get in Python. Let's get in the shell and start seeing how this relationship works between these two. And again, just to reiterate, I've only added this field onto Pokemon, but it's still a many-to-many relationship between Move and Pokemon. So Move knows about all the Pokemon it's being added to, and Pokemon knows all the moves it has added to it. So first things first, let's make a move because that needs to exist before we can add it onto a Pokemon, right? Let's see. So we have to import from Pokemon app models. We're going to import Pokemon and move. We're going to import both those models. Let's say move one is going to equal a new instance of move, and a move. Let's see. So a lot of these fields have default values, and I'm going to really lay into that here by not defining values for these fields when I input a new move. I'm just going to give it a name. That's the only thing that doesn't have a default value that I have to define. It looks like it can be blank and null, which is interesting. I figured we'd want a name on the move, if anything, but whatever. So this field can be blank or null, but I am going to give a name. So we're going to say name equals psychic. You know what? No, we're going to use Ember because I refuse to give Charizard psychic. Okay, so now that should have created the move Ember. We can check that out by saying, okay, give me move one. Since move one has a dunder method, a string method here, it shows me that yes, Ember was created with all these default values for the rest of the fields. Perfect. So we have a move. Let's create a Pokemon. You have created a Pokemon before previously, but since we are recreating our database here today, we don't have any Pokemon in there. So Pokemon 1 will be a new instance of Pokemon, which if we go down to Pokemon, has default captured. Let's see. So I think we just have to give the name. Maybe. We'll just do the name. I guess no. Well, level 1, yeah. But the Boolean we should probably give to. So let's go ahead and do char. We're gonna do Charmander because I'm giving him a low level skill. And then we're gonna give captured equals true. Type error. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Captured. Okay, so now let's take a look and make sure our Pokemon 1, Pokemon. Oh my gosh, I didn't do name equals. Okay, hang on. So let's go ahead and change Pokemon 1's name is going to equal Charmander. Okay, now let's make sure it's right. Perfect. So now I guess it's helpful. Not really though, that could be empty. All right, so we have a Pokemon and we have a move. Let's go ahead and add Ember to Charmander. So now we're able to just do Charmander.moves, and we're going to add the Ember move to it. Let's see. I just want to make sure I get the syntax correct because I haven't done this a lot. I can't remember if I have to do add. Yes, okay. So a lot of this will be in your Django documentation. When we go to the many-to-many field. through fields. There should be some information. I'll have to find it in the documentation here. I guess it's not under here. Excuse me. Okay, yeah, I'll have to find the information here in this, but there's specific ways on how to talk to these fields and add information in there. So we saw how when it's just a field that doesn't have a relationship, I was able to just do Pokemon1.name equals that. I just set it to that, right? I can do that with that because it only has one value in there. But with this many-to-many field, I can put lots of values in there. So if I just say equals, move 1, then it would just assign 1 move and overwrite everything else in there. We don't want to overwrite anything else that might be in there. Like let's say he might already have some moves. I don't want to overwrite those. So we're going to take the Pokemon 1, which is our Charmander, moves, and we're going to add, instead of saying equals, we're going to add a move to this many-to-many relationship. And that is going to be move 1. Wait, what do we got now? Let's read this. Cannot add. The value for field move is none.
I have a question. Don't you have to save that like Pokemon One dot save?
I will at the very end.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if I have to save. I think you just have to save to create.
The last time I was doing the same, and I was checking the Postgres, and I couldn't find that. I couldn't find wherever I was adding. So you could check your maybe your table to see if it's empty or not, and then I don't know. I'm just saying that.
Cannot add move. I guess maybe we one dot. That's probably it. You would probably do have to save. Because I see it does that after creation of the new Pokemon and a move. Okay. So yeah, it looks like we do have to save after we create a new instance of the model, which was our move. So I'm gonna do Pokemon 1 save as well, just in case. Expected ID to be a number, but got Charmander. But great, I messed this up. How can I go back and change this? Set. The bottom line query set is the output. The save? The save is supposed to be in the shell. I'm not, sorry, I'm not following about. Okay, so we got move 1 is Pokemon. Let's, okay, we're gonna change this. We're gonna say field ID expect number, but got Charmander. Let's start over with creating, I don't know why that. It's going to be a Pokemon. And it's going to be name equals. It's probably because of the way I messed up adding it in the shell earlier when I did this. Looks like it added that as the ID. We could do, we're not going to though. We're not going to do this through the admin page. We're going to do this here so we can learn learning the structure for all this is going to help you when you write views for these models. So learning the syntax of this right now is important, especially with how to get the objects that we have created. So let's go ahead and it's going to be name equals Charmander. Chapter, I almost did the same thing. And then we will save Pokemon 2. That is probably structured correctly. There we go. Okay. I messed it up the first time because I didn't do name equals Charmander and I had to go back and try to fix that, but it made Charmander the ID, I guess. Let's see. Expected a number, but got Charmander. Okay, so now we can say Pokemon 2 dot moves dot add. That was move 1. And we can see now it didn't complain because both these are saved to the database and they're good to go. We didn't, let's see, what was the, I lost track of that error that we had. That was that this one? Yeah, cannot add that because it wasn't saved to the database. That's why I was saying it was none. Okay, so now when we want to see Pokemon 2's moves, we can't just say Pokemon 2 dot moves. It gives us a many-to-many relationship. So we could, like, we're able to do Pokemon 2 dot name, and we could see Charmander, because that's just one value, but we have a many-to-many relationship here that's holding another related object. So in order to see the information, the object's information in this many-to-many field, I will be able to see it because there's a string method. If I didn't have a string method, I still wouldn't be able to see it very well, but I would do Pokemon 2 dot moves dot all. If you take this related field that should hold a lot of different foreign keys in it, and then move actually also has the same thing, although not visibly, but we'll see that in a second. You can say Pokemon.moves.all, and that will give you everything. It will give you a query set. So it queries, this is basically saying select all moves from Pokemon. That's the SQL version of what I just did right here. Where, Pokemon equals Charmander, or Pokemon.name equals Charmander. So this is basically a query response that I just got from querying select all moves from Pokemon where Pokemon equals Charmander. And it returns every single move that we add to this Pokemon. So we could do another one. Let's do move 2. Will be equal to a move instance, and we'll give name equals flamethrower. And then we'll say we'll save it. And then we'll add it to our Pokemon 2. Moves, add move 2. And now when we do our Pokemon 2 moves dot all, we can see now it has both of them in here in a list. Okay, so that's cool. That's one way in this many-to-many. I can see Pokemon moves and list them all out. But now, since it's a many-to-many, I should be able to say, hey, give me all the Pokemon that know the move Ember, right? That's the other side of this many-to-many. We should be able to query the other way as well, if that makes sense. So we can, even though move doesn't have like a Pokemon field, that's okay because Django has a way to query reverse through this without having that field defined here. So we could say move to dot Pokemon, which is this model. Now we can't say just Pokemon because we don't have a field that's called Pokemon within our moves model. We have to do Pokemon underscore set. So that is how you look at everything in the reverse way that doesn't have that field in the model. It's still connected, it still has Pokemon, but we need to have this underscore set added to it. There's a different way that I'll show you in a second. So now if we do move to Pokemon set.all, this is basically the query of select all Pokemon from move where move equals Ember. Okay, that's the SQL version of it. So now going backwards, we could see that move Ember has Charmander included. And then if I assign this move to other Pokemon, we would see the other Pokemon in this list as well. Now, there's an easier way to do this. You don't have to do underscore set if you come down to this many-to-many relationship and add a related name. The related name is going to be how you query from the other model in this relationship. So right now we have the field underneath Pokemon. We want to be able to query the way we just did, select all Pokemon from move where move equals Ember. We want to be able to query from this side. So the related name is what you will use to query from the other table. So most of the time it's going to be just the name of the table you're in. So I'm going to give it a related name of Pokemon. Now I changed the model, right? I changed a field within the model, so I have to migrate in order for this to work. In order to save time, I'm not going to do that right now, but having that related name, you would be able to do move to dot Pokemon dot all. You could drop the set because now it's using this name to do kind of the reverse query. Does that make sense? The difference between the two queries here, between the two models in this many-to-many relationship? You only need to add the field to one model, but you can still query from both models. This one we're doing, give me all moves from Pokemon where Pokemon equals Charmander. Then querying from the other way, we say, give me all Pokemon from move where move equals Ember. Okay, so you can query both ways, but you define your many-to-many only in one model. And related names helps the query be a bit easier.
In this case, it's only moves, right? But can I also do that and capture description?
So you could if you had a many-to-many relationship going on with those.
Okay.
But you wouldn't have that for those fields, really. This is for moves because of that many-to-many relationship between and that little intermediary table in between. Typically, we'd be able to, in SQL, just use that table to query everything we need to, I guess, which we'll go back over today when we do our review. But in Django, we only have one field, and then we just learn how to query both ways using that one field. But this is that, if you think in your head, this is that SQL schema that we wrote with the arrows drawing to the other tables. And this many-to-many is that one that has that many-to-many with the little intermediary table in between.
Yeah, that definitely answered my question. What about if I have another? So if I have another one that's many to many, I have to do that, right? In order
Yep,
for me
so
to keep. Okay.
yeah, if you had another one, so let's say, what's another
It's
method?
just an example. I'm just making sure that I am understanding this. I get it now.
Yeah, let's say a Pokemon, I know they can't because I'm a nerd and I played a lot of Pokemon, but let's say they can hold like multiple items instead of just one. And then, those items will be also assigned to many different Pokemon. They're not just restricted to just one. So you can do the same thing with that. You can make a many to many field for items and have like a separate model called item, which would have like item name and stuff like that. And then you would probably give it a related name as well of Pokemon, because that is the query from the other model. So you would be doing the related name is the reverse. So it'd be like from give me all Pokemon related to the item named Elixir or something. And then you would be able to query using just Pokemon instead of a set. So
If
typically,
there was
oh, go ahead.
if there was like one rule breaker, like let's say they can only hold one item, but then there's like one item in Pokemon that can be held twice, would that affect um the entire like many to many versus one to many relationship? Like would you just go off that one outlier?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like Eevee, like use Eevee as an example. If it was a evolves from, right? Evolves from, but then Eevee is the only one that breaks the rule, right? Would that change the entire thing for everybody? Would it be a many to many field, or would you make like a new field for that one special case? I guess is my question.
So what I would probably do is I would probably add a like a validation or clean to that, where I'd have it checked to make sure, like if it's Eevee, then Eevee can have two, but otherwise make sure that there's only one object in this many to many, something like that. That's a good question though. But yeah, I would probably go because you can't, I mean, the database schema has to be able to accommodate. And if you're going to have them both named item, um, I maybe would probably do special item and then item. Like you could also make two tables. This is the database design thing that's going to take a lot of thought and figuring out what is best. But you can have two tables, and then when you go add, because you're going to be making methods and endpoints for these, you could point, if it's like you could do front end validation before it gets to the back end logic and say if Eevee is the name of the Pokemon, then go ahead and use this model in and relationship versus the other one. I don't know. I'd have to get into a lot of thought to figure out how to lay that out. But initially, I think I would just add something in the clean, because we can see here that, if self.moves.count is, greater than 4, then go ahead and, say that they can't have more. So we can add one if self.name equals Eevee, or does not equal Eevee, then self.item or self.items.count is equal or less than or equal to 1.
Yeah. Okay.
That's probably what yeah. Good questions though. This many to many field will trip y'all up for a while. And I promise I'm going to see a few of y'all try to add it in both tables. But don't. It just belongs in one. When you put it in one, you can still access it from both. Okay, so any other questions about adding on this many to many field? That's it for the lecture, but I want to show you a one to many field as well because it's a little different. Okay, cool. So no questions on that. Definitely ask questions when you're working on your challenge if you're having issues with the relationships.
I have a
So,
question.
oh, yes.
Yeah. So are we going to have to create a database for the assessment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
You're gonna
it'd
be
just be a just regular SQL database. It won't be like a Django.
right. No, nothing Django. It's all gonna be SQL. And we're gonna go over a review problem. which I will probably put off till a little later now, actually, since we're eating a lot of time with this. But I will do a review that will walk you through exactly what the assessment will expect. And it will be a blast from the past. This actually will help you. We're thinking about the same things. We're thinking about these relationships between tables, which you'll need for your SQL exam. But it's all in SQL. And then you're going to write queries in SQL. Okay. So now let's move on to adding a one-to-many field. So the best example I thought of this, let's see, I'm going to get out of this shell real quick because we're going to be doing some changes to the database. Okay, so the best thing I thought of this is maybe a move type. So let's say, even though I know new Pokemon games allow the moves to be multiple types, we're going to pretend like every move can only be one type. So Ember, Flamethrower, those are all fire type. Okay, so I'm going to make a new model that's going to be a move type. And I'm creating this first because I'm going to assign each move a move type, right? So I want move type to exist before I try to assign it to a move. So it's going to be created first. And move type's literally only going to have a name. That's all, just to make it easy. Character field, and we'll do max length of 100. That sounds good. Okay, so now we have a move type. Now I want every move. So in this relationship, we're making it one-to-many because a move can only have one type, but this type is going to be assigned to lots of different moves. Okay, so this is a one-to-many relationship. So let's go ahead and add this under move because it's going to get a type, and the type is going to be that ID from that foreign key from this table. So this will be type. It's going to be models dot. Now, the first one was many-to-many field. So this one you think, oh, maybe one-to-many. No, it's called foreign key field. Okay, so a one-to-many relationship uses a foreign key field, and this is just signifying that we are going to expect a foreign key within this field value. And then again, like the many-to-many, we need to point to what model it is going to get that foreign key from. So we're going to use move type. Okay, so let's roll with this and see what happens. We saw we had a related name there. We can add a related name here as well, and it will allow you to query both ways again, because with this we'll be able to say select all types from move where move equals, or it would be one, right? Select the type from move where move equals Ember, and it would give us fire. But then we could query with the related name from move type and say, give us all moves where move type equals Ember. Or sorry, move type equals fire. So let's use move as the related name so we can query from the other table as well. Or yeah, moves, I guess, because I will do move type dot moves dot all. That seems right. I don't want to do move type dot move dot all. I guess either or, dealer's choice. It doesn't matter. Okay, so I changed the model. Let's make migrations. Make migrations. Let's see what we have here. So this is different. It says foreign key is missing one required argument on delete. Okay, on delete. This is something that is specific to our foreign key fields. We could see when we're hovering over this class that it has on delete and then on delete options. What is on delete, you may be thinking? On delete is what happens to this model or this entry when the related information is removed from the database. So if fire is like fire type is removed from the database, what happens to this entry of this move when that happens? So yes, it's similar to cascade, exactly. And there is a cascade option for the on delete here. Let me get the Django documentation up. Let's see, field types again, and we're going down to foreign key. And in foreign key, here we have on delete. So when an object referenced by that foreign key is deleted, Django will want this on delete argument. Okay, so cascade, much like you have in SQL, if you delete the item that's being referenced, cascade will delete every entry that references it. So that may or may not be what you want to happen for your database. If you think about that, what that means is, so if I have Charmander, or sorry, if I have a move called Ember and it's a fire type, if I delete fire, it's going to delete Ember. That's what Cascade does. You may want that to happen. You may want that move to be deleted if fire is deleted, but maybe you don't. There are different ways you can handle that. So that's where these other ones, protect, prevents the deletion of it. So you literally can't delete the reference object. Restrict is kind of the same way, where you can't delete it, but you could if you have some sort of cascade relationship going on. These are all a little in depth, especially this cascade one. You can look more into that. A lot of times, though, you will use set null or set default. If you don't want to use cascade and you don't want to protect the information somehow, set null and set default are wonderful options for what happens on delete. So if I were to delete fire, let's say I just want Ember to still hang out there and not go away, and then we'll just reassign a different type maybe later. So I can go ahead and set null. So then when I delete fire, type would just be null in the database. So that's a good option. Or default. We can have a default type. So maybe we can do default type equals normal. So that way we can do on default or on delete set default. So if fire's deleted, then the move would just automatically assume that default value of normal. So all different options. Make sure you really evaluate how you want your database to act. A lot of times if you have this cascade, that's good and to protect all the information, but you also got to think about if you delete, let's see, that shouldn't be a problem here if we delete the move, because our many-to-many, it would just remove it from the list that the Pokemon has. So that would be fine.
And I think also because the Pokemon doesn't have any foreign key, right? So it shouldn't have any problem.
Yeah, well, yeah, it has that intermediary table. Yeah, so it doesn't directly have the foreign key, it just has that go-between table holding it. So that entry in the intermediary table would go away because that entry for Ember would be deleted. So but yes, foreign key requires on delete, and it tells the database how to handle when information is removed. So we're going to have on delete, and it's going to be models dot. So we will keep cascade for now. We will say that's okay if we delete fire for some reason, go ahead and delete all the fire moves as well. And then it will remove it from our Pokemon. Okay, so now that we have an on delete determined, now we should be able to go ahead and migrate. All right, so now we get this interesting issue here. It says, impossible to add a non-nullable field type to move without specifying a default. Database needs something to populate, blah, blah, blah. basically this is saying that move, I added a type. And I haven't said in here that it could be blank or null. So this has to have a value. We already have a move in the database. And so that, we have two moves actually. We have Ember and Flamethrower. So when I'm adding this field into the database, those two must have a type defined because I don't allow that field to be empty. So I can either give a default now that will input for all those entries in the database that exist, or I can get out of here and put like a default value in the field itself. I'm gonna quit and add the default manually because this number 1 is hit or miss on if it will work the way you want it to. So I'm gonna get back out, and it's much easier to just go ahead and add a default. And we will say normal. Okay, so now everything will get a normal. So then we could update this to be models.set default instead if we wanted. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to, we're gonna make migrations again and see, okay, now it's happy. Everything works. We went ahead and addressed the issue with adding a field to our database when data already exists in there. And that's why you want to really lay out your schemas before you start adding things into the database, because otherwise you're going to get a lot of this. Like a lot of, hey, you added this field, but we have all these entries in here already that require this field now. So definitely take some time to think about your schema before just going ahead and throwing everything in. So we see created move type, good, altered the field on Pokemon moves. That's because I added that related name. I didn't migrate when we did that, but now it has. And then we added a field type to move. So let's migrate. Expected a number. Oh, well. I guess we'll do default 1. I guess that makes sense. I did not do that. Okay, let's make migrations again and migrate and see if that works. Field ID expected number but got normal. This did not do this last night. Okay, so I am going to trash my database. Whenever you get super stuck in all this and you're not knowing what's going on, you could just trash it, which is docker compose down -b. Okay. Now my database is brand new. Oh, I didn't do, okay. Let's get out of there and go into this. So let's see if now I can make migrations, hopefully. If not, then I'll have to look into this. No changes detected. Okay, so why did it say that? If my database is new, I started a new database, I took down the volumes. Why is it telling me there's no changes detected?
Because the container still exists as the same.
So that's a good thought. I had killed the container completely and remade a new one. So this actually has nothing to do with our database. This make migrations is this stuff here. So because we still have, oh, I wonder then if I should get rid of these. We'll see. We'll see if I can make migrations, but all these migrations have already happened on their Django side. So nothing has changed. We haven't added anything. All these migrations still stand that we've made. They're just not in the database yet. So now when we do migrate, it's going to push all these changes into our new database that we've just stood back up. If this doesn't work and I still have problems, I will probably destroy all of these migrations. You can literally destroy all of these, delete them, and then when you make migrations again, it will do a new initial. So let's see what happens. Migrate. Has still got, okay. I'm gonna have to look and see what I messed up with my move thing here. Okay, we're gonna do what I said and just delete all those migrations. I'm just trying some stuff out. I'll look into this in a bit to see if I can find what's wrong. I literally did this last night and everything was working, but it's okay. Default. Let's take out, since we're deleting everything and there's nothing in our database, I'm going to take out the default because we're making this from scratch. So that default might be messing with things too. I will have no entries in my database that have to be fixed now. I'm going to make sure I kill this container. And now run it daemon mode. Or detached mode, sorry, not daemon. And I'm going to destroy it. That's fine. Okay, so now let's try to make migrations again. So now that I made migrations, after I destroyed all of those migrations I had before, now I have a new initial, which is grabbing everything in my files that I've created. And I'm glad I'm struggling through this because y'all will have every single one of these struggles in your personal projects. Guarantee it. Migrating and database changes can be a headache, but these are easy ways to go ahead and just kind of wipe and start from scratch. Because you will get a lot of issues with migrations when adding different fields.
So the migrations are 001, 002, 003, right? Let's start from there.
Yes, this is when you make migrations, it's going to make those files that it will apply to your Postgres database.
Cool.
And now we can see that I started from scratch, removed all those migrations, took out that default value that was being weird, because since I don't have any data, I don't have to handle adding this new field to pre-existing data. So now I am able to cleanly apply those migrations to the database without any errors. So a lot of times your existing data in the database will cause issues when you add fields.
Hey, Tiffany, Michael's looking to be let in the room.
Oh, okay, thank you. Got it. Okay, so I'm not going to go into the shell to do a new adding all that stuff because I want to save time here for y'all to actually start getting hands-on. But for this foreign key field, how you can grab the data in this is you are able to say, let's see, you should be able to just do move.type because this is just one value. You might have to do, let me see if there's a move.type. Oh, okay. So if you do move.type, you will probably get the associated object, right? Kind of like we did with the many-to-many. However, you can do move.type dot whatever field is in that associated model. So you can do move.type.name, and it will give you the name of that move type associated to a specific move. So if we had like Ember is, and we would say move one equals move.object.get ID one, or move.object.get name equals Ember, that will grab that move. Then you can say move one dot type dot name, and it should give you fire, as long as you create a fire type and assign it to this. You are able to just add it the same way as you would any other field that has one value. You are able to say move dot type equals a specific move type. And let's see, I'm looking at the documentation here. Okay, now to query from, let's see, to query from the move type to get all the different moves assigned to it, you would do, first you grab the type. Yeah, you would grab the type you want, and then you would do kind of like we did with our many-to-many, you would do that type dot moves, or whatever we said move. Our related name is move. Type dot move dot all. Dot all is the one that will grab you multiple different values. But if the field only has one value, you can access it directly without doing a dot all. Okay. That might not make much sense, but I want to save y'all time to look into it. You can come to, let's see. Hang on. I'm gonna find it here. Let's find. I don't think it's that. Making queries. Let's see. Can we see where we have a all objects, get other queries set. Let's see if there's retrieving all objects. And let's see if there's one for, let's see, field lookups. I'll find where these are, the verbiage or the syntax that you have to use to query with the dot all other query set. Yeah, I'll have to look and figure out where that is. That's filters. You can filter. Oh yeah, these are helpful. Filter is like the where in your SQL query. So you can do the, objects.get.all, but you can also do objects.filter and add in like where stuff on your query. So all this is in lookups that span relationships. This is how to span across multiple tables. That might be a little more. This is all in Django documentation, field lookups. Anyways, I will find this information. I don't want to keep you from working on stuff, so I will try to find, objects.all. Okay. I'll find where it says how to do the reverse lookup from the other model that doesn't have the field identified on it using the related name and the sets. Any questions though on this one-to-many? How we did this? It's a foreign key field referencing the model. You can still add a related name for when you query from the other model, but we have to have this on delete. Okay. Then I will stop recording and we will go over what the challenges for this morning